Hi Stampers, it's Madeline from stampinwithmadelyn.com, and I am doing a paper pumpkin alternative / embossing 101 video that I can't wait to share with you. The cards are absolutely stunning and it's super easy to make, and I can't wait to show you. So first, I don't want to forget to tell you, tomorrow is the last day that you can sign up for the October kit, and it is a matching set of kits for October and November. They're going to be holiday themed. They will work separately, but they'll work the best if you match them together. So you want to make sure that you get both of them because they are going to be absolutely amazing. I can't wait to get them. Okay, so I will have a link below to my Paper Pumpkin store. Make sure to sign up by tomorrow and on October 10th, and you'll have the October kit, and then it'll automatically charge you for the November kit once we get to November 10th if you want to do both of them. So I'll have the link below, and you can click over and get over into my Paper Pumpkin store. Okay, so this is what we're making today. These stamps are absolutely stunning, and with the embossing, it makes it even more beautiful. So we are going to be doing two techniques today. This one is just going to be regular embossing. I'll show you what you'll need for it and how to make it and everything like that. This one is, we're going to emboss but then do a really fun background on the back. So I'll show you everything you'll need in order to make both of these cards. So let's get started. So again, I'm working with the September 2017 Layered Leaves Paper Pumpkin set. My favorite part of the kit was the stamps. They were absolutely stunning, and they're so versatile, which is what everything about Stampin' Up! Is, but these especially were absolutely amazing. Okay, so what you'll need for both of these cards is you'll need 2 card bases. So you want to get 2 Whisper White card bases ready, 5.5 by, I cut them at the one piece of paper I just cut in half, so 5.5 by 8.5. And then I have 2 pieces of cherry cobbler at 4.25 by 5.5, so that will cover the entire back of both of these card bases. Then for this one, I want a piece of Very Vanilla. You could use Whisper White, totally up to you. I did it 1/4 inch thinner than the cherry cobbler, so I did 4 by 5.25. I have a little strip of Tangerine Tango just for across here. It was 4.25 by 1 inch. And then I just have a scrap piece of Very Vanilla that I'm going to use to cut out the tag. So we will be using another set called Label Me Pretty. I love this stamp set. It has the coordinating punch. You can get this at a discount right now, 10% off if you buy it as a bundle. Totally worth it. A really cute stamp set, especially near the holidays because you can make lots of cute tags with it. So I just have a scrap of Very Vanilla so that I can cut one of my labels out of that. Alright, so supplies-wise, you're going to need some different things. It's not from the Paper Pumpkin kit, but I wanted to teach you this technique. So for embossing, you're going to need Versamark. Versamark is a sticky, wet ink that goes down clear. So you'll need that. That's in the catalog. So everything will be over on my blog. I'll make a whole list where you can click right over into my store and see every piece of supply that we use. I have a heat tool that I'm using. That's on our store as well. And then I have the embossing powder. So we have lots of different colors of embossing powder. This one is copper. You will also need the most important tool of embossing, which is an embossing buddy. So the embossing buddy makes it so that everything, when you're stamping the Versamark, it makes it so everything is nice and clean. There's no oil from your fingers or anything like that, because that will affect the way that the embossing looks. So let's get started. All of this will make a lot more sense once we start moving with it. Alright, so the first card that I'll start out with is just the regular embossing card. That way you get a sense of exactly how to make it. Okay, so I'll put the card there. And we're going to get started. So take out that piece of cherry cobbler. So it's 5.5 by 4.25. You want to take out your piercing pad because they are photopolymer stamps, so you do want to have that underneath. We are going to take our embossing buddy. So you want to, at this point, you don't want to touch this anymore because the oil from your fingers will affect the way that the embossing will look. So I'm just going to rub this embossing buddy up and down. This just cleans the surface so it's nice for us Doesn't have any debris or anything on it. Okay, just like that. Put that aside. You want to have your leaves on blocks. So I have both of these on blocks already, the big leaf and the small leaf. We're going to take our Versamark. Again, it doesn't really look like anything because it's just a sticky ink. I'm going to, you want to make sure you're getting the entire leaf. So you almost want to overstamp just to make sure that everything gets really, and it's such a detailed stamp that you really want to make sure it all gets inked. And then this is where you get to pick where you're stamping. So wherever you want to stamp, stamp it. And you'll see that it'll leave like a wet residue of the stamp. That's exactly what you want. So see how you can kind of see it? So now we're just going to place these all over the card where we want. I'm going to aim to do 4 of these leaves. So again, just over stamping it to get it nice and wet. I usually just hold on to a corner where I know it won't affect the embossing to hold down the paper as I'm lifting up the stamp. There we go. So we have all of our big leaves. Now I'm going to go back in with the small leaf and just do a few of these. There we go. Okay, so now that part is done. You want to make sure that your Versamark gets closed up, and I store it upside down so it stays nice and moist on the top. All right, so now comes the fun part. We are going to use our Stampin' Emboss powder. I've put it in a Tupperware just so it's easy for me to maneuver better. So I have my copper embossing powder in here. You want to pick up your paper without touching any of that wet ink. Scoop up the embossing powder and then just move it along the paper. And see how it gets stuck to where you want it? So that's exactly where we stamped. So this is just trying to maneuver so that you get everything covered. So just take a quick peek and see if you have everything covered. Now you flip it upside down and flick it. This will get the excess off while leaving the things that you want. So now this is just very wet. So if you were to touch this right now, it would smudge. So I put it into a little like banana bread pan here, and that just holds it all together. And when I heat it, it's not ruining anything, because I have ruined mats before because the heat tool gets really, really hot. So now that we have the powder, we have it in our little bread pan or whatever you're going to use that's heat resistant. We want to take our heat tool and go back and forth and get it heated up, and you'll see the magic happen pretty quickly. So I'm going to start heating this up. Okay, so you saw the magic happen. You want to let this dry just for a second because you don't want it to smudge at all. It is still wet. The paper does fold a little bit with the heat, but once you glue it down, it'll be fine. So look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? I just love the copper on the cherry cobbler paper. It's stunning. Okay, so now we're going to start putting this card together. We're going to fold our card base in half. This is that Whisper White 5.5 by 8.5. And we're going to attach our leaves onto this. So just once it's dried, you want to get this nice and adhesive just because it did bulge a little bit from the heat. And just attach it down where it's covering up the entire card. And you can always snip off if there's a little bit of extra, which we will have on this one. You can always snip off that extra. There we go. We're going to just take our snips out and cut off this excess here that is showing. So that was the way to regular emboss. Now we're going to emboss the same way on the next card, but we are going to color over it, which I really love. So you'll see that. Okay, here we go. We got the excess off. All right, so now we need to make our little tag here. So I have the little orange Tangerine Tango strip that we're going to attach across here. And then we're going to make our tag. So I have my Very Vanilla, my label punch here. And I'm going to just punch out quickly a label we're going to use. Okay, so I'm going to be using two different stamps. I'm going to be using this from the Label Me Pretty stamp set. I'm going to use Cherry Cobbler for both the label and the sentiment. You want to just lightly tap this in there. You don't want to get a lot of ink on it because then you'll get the center all inked. So now that I just have the edges inked, I'm going to put this down, press very lightly, and there we go. Then we're going to use a stamp from the Paper Pumpkin kit, the Keep Calm and Be Thankful. Ink it up on the Cherry Cobbler, center it on here. There we go. Okay, so now it's just putting the finishing touches on the card. So I'm going to attach this. You could use an embossing folder and make this orange stand out more if you'd like. I really wanted the focus to be on the leaves in the background, so I was okay just keeping the Tangerine Tango plain. I'm going to use some dimensionals that will make this stand up. I'm just using, the most important thing about dimensionals is that this whole edge here, when you're done with your dimensionals, you want to use that up, because that is just like the regular dimensionals. You just cut it down to whatever size you want. So I have some of that excess there. And I'm just going to center it and push down. And there we go. There is our first embossing card. Okay, so now the next card that we're going to do is going to start off the same way. So for this card, you're going to want to have a Cherry Cobbler piece of paper that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then you're going to want a Very Vanilla piece of paper, or Whisper White, it's totally up to you. That's 4 by 5 1/4. So we're going to do the same technique that we did on the last card. First, you're going to take your Embossing Buddy and just get this nice and clean. Okay, now we're going to get that Versamark out. So I'm going to aim for 2 big leaves and 2 small leaves. So again, you want to over ink this big leaf and just make sure you get all the nice details inked here. And this one will be harder. It's going to be harder for you to see when you stamp it if you got all of it. So just make sure it's nice and inked and then press for a good 3 seconds on it. Okay, and then do it one more time. And I'm going to have some of it off of the card. Okay. And then I'm going to do the small leaf. And again, I'm just doing 2 of these, because you want a lot of room for the sponging that we're going to do. Okay, so now that that is done, if you look at it at an angle, you can see that wet ink. So we're going to do the same thing we did. I'm going to get my copper Tupperware out, get all of the embossing powder to one side and then lift it and make sure it gets on all of your creation. Okay, and then you're going to flip it over and just flip the back. And that looks like it took off too much. So sometimes you want to go back over and get some more on there. There we go. You want to dust off any of the excess that you got on here, just because that will dry when we heat it up. Okay, so put it back into your pan or whatever you're using and get out your heat tool, and we're going to do the same thing. Okay, so now that we're done with that, it did get a little bit crimped just from the heat, so you can always manipulate it to get it back. And we'll be using adhesive, so it'll be fine once we attach it to our card. Okay, so I'm going to be using 3 different colors for this step. Crushed Curry, Tangerine Tango, and Cherry Cobbler. And I'm also going to be using sponge daubers, so these you can get in the catalog as well, and I'll have a link over on my blog. So we are going to go from light to dark. So we're going to start with the Crushed Curry here. I'm going to close up my Versamark. We're all done with that. I'm going to take my sponge dauber and just get it nice and inked. So I'm just blotting on here. Now, you want to cover the entire surface, okay? So we're going to go in and just do some rounding. You want to go lightly. If you start out lightly, then you won't get like a blob of ink. So by going lightly, almost up in the air, not even on the card yet, that'll be your best bet to get some nice even color. So we're just covering the whole card with this Crushed Curry here. Even going over the embossing that you did, because you want that color to be inside of the leaves. So depending on the pressure that you put with the sponge dauber, the color will look a lot different. So you can move this around just to make sure that you get all the parts of the card nice and inked. Okay, so now that I've done all of my yellow, or the Crushed Curry, you could go back and go darker on some of the parts if you want, or just get some of the parts that look still very white. Okay, so now I'm going to go in with the Tangerine Tango. So the yellow is the only one that I'm going to go all over the place with. The Tangerine Tango and the Crushed Curry, I'm going to be a little bit different. So I'm just going to go in and do it in some different places. I'm going very lightly. I'm not going heavy on this because I don't want it to fully cover up the yellow. I almost want it just to blend in with the yellow. So we're just getting some small hints of it. Okay, I think that's enough. So that's the Tangerine Tango. And now we're going to do crushed curry. Or not crushed curry, cherry cobbler, sorry. Now this is the one that you want to go the lightest on because it's the darkest of them. So I'm just going to mix it in here. Do some, you could do any kind of pattern that you want. There we go. And so depending on your technique, you'll get lots of different looks from it, which that's what I like. Every card will look different. I'm gonna do a little bit more. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to do the sentiment. So I'm going to keep the cherry cobbler out. I'm going to use the same sentiment, the keep calm and be thankful. And I'm going to do it down here in the corner. There we go. Now it's just putting the card together. So you're going to get that crushed, or the cherry cobbler out, and we're going to attach this to it. So again, put lots of adhesive just because it did round a little bit from the heat. Center it on your cherry cobbler. There we go. And then you want to put it onto your card base. So get out your Whisper White, fold it in half, and we're just going to attach it to this. There we go. So there are two paper pumpkin alternatives that are very easy to make, and you learned a new technique of how to emboss in two different styles. I really hope you liked this video. Please give me a thumbs up if you liked it. I'd love to hear from you. You can leave your comments below, and my Paper Pumpkin shop link will be below, and also the blog link, which will give you all of the supplies that we used in addition to the Paper Pumpkin kit. And again, don't forget that October 10th is the last day that you can sign up for these matching dual kits I'm so excited for. One in October and one in November. You can hit my Paper Pumpkin shop link below and get signed up so that you can get both October and November. They will match together and be super cute. For now, keep stamping, Stampers. Bye.